I still remember that crisp autumn morning when everything I believed about my family shattered in an instant. I'd woken up full of hope, ready to face another day of quiet determination and hidden dreams, only to be hit by the coldest words a father could ever utter: "You're only good enough for a diner job." In the first 100 seconds, as the echoes of that cruel remark reverberated through my mind, I felt the weight of betrayal and inadequacy settle into every fiber of my being. It was as if a tidal wave of rejection had swept over me, leaving behind nothing but the bitter taste of disappointment. And then I learned that while my father had given my sister a staggering $500,000 for law school, he had never once believed in me. That revelation set me on a journey to reclaim my self-worth, a journey that would transform every tear, every heartbreak into a stepping stone toward an unexpected triumph. I grew up in a modest, hard-working family where dreams were big but resources were few. My father, a self-made entrepreneur who had clawed his way up from nothing, always stressed the importance of success and achievement. He had a relentless drive, and his expectations for his children were as high as the skyscrapers he once admired in the city skyline. My sister, Rebecca, was the golden child in his eyes, a brilliant, charming girl who seemed to embody everything he valued. When it came time for college, he didn't hesitate to invest in her future, giving her $500,000 to pursue a prestigious law degree. I, on the other hand, was constantly reminded that my ambitions were trivial, that I was destined for something far less grand. Something like working in a diner, serving coffee and pie to people who never really saw me. For years, that verbal wound festered in silence. I buried my insecurities beneath a mask of determination, telling myself that I didn't need my father's approval to define my worth. I channeled my energy into my own dreams, even as his disparaging words haunted me in quiet moments. I pursued a degree in business management and worked tirelessly in the small company I helped my family run. Every day was a battle against the echo of his insults. Every promotion, every achievement, a silent defiance against the belief that I was only good enough for a diner job. Yet, despite my efforts, the specter of his judgment loomed large, and I began to question whether I would ever be able to break free from the constraints of his expectations. The turning point came unexpectedly. It was during my final year at college when I was offered an internship at a prestigious firm. A position that promised not only practical experience but also a glimpse into the world of corporate success that I had always craved. I threw myself into the role with unbridled passion, determined to prove to myself, and to my father, that I was capable of greatness. I worked long hours, often staying up late into the night refining presentations and crunching data. Slowly, my confidence began to build, and I started to see a path forward that was entirely my own. I realized that my worth wasn't measured by the amount of money my father was willing to hand over to my sister, but by the strength, perseverance, and creativity I brought to every challenge. However, even as my career began to take off, the emotional scars from my childhood lingered. I couldn't shake the memory of that devastating morning when my father's words had cut me so deeply. I started to write in a journal, pouring my heart out onto paper in long, cathartic sessions that left me raw but determined to heal. I wrote about the countless times I'd felt overshadowed by Rebecca's success, about the days when I had believed that I would forever be deemed unworthy. In those pages, I found a way to confront my past, to see it not as a chain that held me back but as a series of challenges that I had overcome. Slowly, my writing became a form of therapy, a means of transforming pain into a force that propelled me forward. After graduating, I landed a full-time position at that same prestigious firm, and over the next several years, I steadily climbed the corporate ladder. My work was recognized for its innovation and precision, and I found myself entrusted with projects that had a significant impact on the company's bottom line. Each new success was a victory over the long-held belief that I was somehow less capable than my sister. I began to see that while my father's investment in Rebecca had set her on one path, I was free to chart my own course, one that was defined not by his approval, but by my own ambition and determination. Yet, the wounds of the past did not simply vanish with my professional accomplishments. I often found myself at family gatherings surrounded by the opulent reminders of my father's wealth and success, feeling like an outsider in a world that celebrated everything I had been told I would never achieve. At these events, my father's eyes would sometimes linger on me with a mixture of pity and scorn, a silent reminder that in his mind, I was still only good enough for a diner job. I tried to brush off the looks and the whispered comments, but they cut deep, reawakening the insecurities I had fought so hard to overcome. One day, a crisis struck that forced me to confront my past head-on. I received a call from a family lawyer, informing me that my father had passed away unexpectedly, his final days were marked by a painful confrontation with the reality of his own shortcomings. In the wake of his death, the family gathered for a reading of his will, a moment that for many was filled with grief, but for me, it was an opportunity for a reckoning. The reading revealed startling details about my father's true feelings and the priorities that had driven his life. In his final document, he had left a significant portion of his estate to Rebecca, with the explicit instruction that I was to receive only a token sum. A sum that, in his eyes, was commensurate with mine modest achievements. The words on the page were as cold and cutting as those he had used to belittle me for so many years. May you learn that true worth is not measured in dollars, but in the humility of one's station. The shock of reading his final judgment was overwhelming. My heart ached with the realization that even in death, he had never truly recognized my potential. That day I felt a surge of anger and determination. I could no longer allow my father's narrow vision to dictate my destiny. I vowed that I would prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that my worth was not defined by his limited perspective. I immersed myself even deeper in my work, using every setback as a stepping stone to build a future that was entirely my own. I started investing in my own ventures, using the lessons I had learned to create a diversified portfolio that reflected my values and ambitions. I began mentoring young professionals, sharing my story of resilience and the importance of self-belief. Every lecture, every workshop became an affirmation that I was capable of greatness, capable of building a legacy that would outshine the petty judgments of a father who had never seen my true potential. Over time, I managed to transform the pain of my father's rejection into a powerful source of motivation. My career soared, and I became known in the industry not just as a successful executive, but as a visionary leader who had defied the odds. I was invited to speak at conferences, where I shared the story of my journey from humiliation to empowerment. Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth, I would say passionately, because your worth is determined by your actions, your resilience, and your ability to rise after every fall. My words resonated with audiences who had faced their own battles with self-doubt and rejection, and I received countless messages from individuals who thanked me for inspiring them to reclaim their own power. Meanwhile, my relationship with my sister grew increasingly strained. Rebecca, who had always basked in the glow of our father's favoritism, began to resent the fact that I had achieved more than she ever had. Family dinners became battlegrounds of thinly veiled hostility, with cutting remarks exchanged over the clink of silverware and polite conversation. I tried to reach out to her, to mend the rift that had deepened over the years, but every attempt ended in bitter recrimination. The toxic dynamic between us was a constant reminder of the long-held belief that my success came at the expense of her own, an idea that I had long rejected, but one that still festered in her heart. Our relationship, once filled with the shared memories of childhood, had devolved into a series of cold silences and resentful glares, a painful legacy of our father's skewed priorities. Despite the familial strife, I found solace in the support of my own chosen family, friends, mentors, and colleagues who celebrated my achievements and believed in my potential. I began hosting intimate gatherings at my home, inviting people who had faced similar challenges to share their stories of overcoming rejection and defying expectations. These gatherings became a sanctuary, a place where I could shed the weight of my past and embrace a future defined by hope and resilience. We talked about the power of self-belief, the importance of forging our own paths, and the necessity of standing up against those who would diminish our worth. In those moments, I felt a deep connection, a shared understanding that our struggles, however painful, were the stepping stones to our true potential. As the years passed, I continued to build my legacy. I expanded my business ventures into new markets, launching innovative products that disrupted the industry and earned accolades for their ingenuity. I invested in philanthropic endeavors, donating to causes that promoted education, entrepreneurship, and social justice. I became a mentor to aspiring leaders, especially young women, who looked to my journey as a beacon of hope in a world that often underestimated them. Each milestone, each success, was a defiant testament to the fact that I was more than the sum of the insults and rejection I had endured. One crisp winter evening, as I stood on the balcony of my penthouse overlooking a city transformed by the glow of holiday lights, I reflected on the long, winding road that had brought me here. The memory of my father's cruel words, "You're only good enough for a diner job," still echoed in my mind, but it no longer held power over me. Instead, it had become a catalyst for the incredible transformation of my life. I had turned the venom of his judgment into the fuel that propelled me to heights I had once only dreamed of. I was now a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of resilience in a world that too often measures worth by shallow standards. At a major industry conference held that winter, I took the stage to share my story. The room was filled with hundreds of aspiring entrepreneurs and business leaders, all eager to learn from someone who had defied the odds. I stand before you today, I began, my voice firm and resonant, not as the daughter of a man who doubted my worth, but as a testament to the power of perseverance and self-belief. My journey from rejection to redemption is a reminder that our worth is not defined by the expectations of others but by the strength we muster in the face of adversity. The audience erupted in applause, and in that moment, I knew that I had reclaimed my narrative. Every tear, every scar was a symbol of survival, a badge of honor that testified to the fact that I had risen above the limitations imposed on me. While the professional accolades and public recognition were incredibly fulfilling, the journey also forced me to confront the deeper, more personal wounds that had festered for so long. I sought out therapy to process the lingering feelings of betrayal and to learn how to rebuild relationships that had been marred by envy and resentment. In countless sessions, I delved into the complexities of sibling rivalry, the burden of a father's expectations, and the painful truth that success in its truest form is not measured by wealth alone. I learned to forgive, not for the sake of those who had hurt me but for my own healing. I came to understand that forgiveness was not about condoning past actions but about freeing myself from the chains of bitterness that threatened to hold me back. One particularly transformative session with my therapist, Dr. Martinez, stands out in my memory. Every hurtful word, every act of rejection, is a story waiting to be rewritten, she told me gently one afternoon. You have the power to turn your pain into a masterpiece, a legacy of strength that inspires others. Remember, your worth is not defined by the judgments of those who fear your potential. Her words resonated deeply, and I began to see that the scars of my past could become the building blocks of my future. I started to write a memoir, a raw and unfiltered account of my journey from the depths of rejection to the heights of success. Each chapter was a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even the most devastating betrayals can lead to profound personal growth. My memoir, once published, struck a chord with readers far and wide. Letters poured in from people who had faced similar struggles, who had been told they were not good enough or that their dreams were too big for the world. Their words of gratitude and admiration filled me with a sense of purpose I had never known before. I realized that my story was not just about overcoming my father's cruel judgment, it was about inspiring others to believe in themselves, to fight against the narrow definitions of worth that society often imposes. Every message I received was a reminder that while my journey had been marked by pain, it had also sparked a fire in countless others. Meanwhile, the family dynamics that had once defined my existence continued to evolve. My father's disapproval, which had haunted me for so long, slowly faded into a distant echo as I carved out my own identity. I reconnected with relatives who had always seen beyond the surface, who recognized that my worth was not dictated by the wealth I lacked in their eyes but by the strength I had built through hardship. There were awkward, heartfelt conversations, apologies that came with tears and tentative attempts at reconciliation. Although the wounds were deep and some relationships might never fully heal, I began to see that there was a path toward understanding. A path that allowed us all to confront our own shortcomings and to embrace a future built on mutual respect and honesty. As the years passed, I became more than just the daughter who was once deemed only good enough for a diner job. I emerged as a force in the business world, a leader whose success was a testament to the transformative power of resilience and self-belief. I expanded my ventures into new markets, invested in sustainable projects, and became a mentor to those who dared to dream despite the odds. I traveled extensively, attended conferences, and even gave TEDx talks on the power of overcoming rejection. My life was a mosaic of experiences. Each piece, whether dark or bright, contributed to the picture of who I had become. And as I looked back on that fateful day when my father's harsh words had threatened to define me, I realized that those very words had become the impetus for my greatest triumph. Now, as I sit in the soft glow of my office overlooking a skyline that sparkles with promise, I reflect on the long, winding road that brought me here. My journey was marked by betrayal and heartbreak, by the constant struggle to prove my worth in a world that once tried to diminish me. But it was also marked by moments of profound triumph. Moments when I chose to rise above the pain, when I chose to rewrite the narrative of my life with courage and determination. Every setback, every whispered insult, every tear shed in solitude was a stepping stone that led me to this moment of undeniable empowerment. This is my story, a story of a woman who defied the cruel judgments of a father and a society that told her she wasn't enough. It is the story of how I turned a devastating rejection into a legacy of resilience and success, of how I built a future that was entirely my own, defined not by the limitations imposed on me but by the boundless strength I discovered within. I now stand as a testament to the fact that our worth is not determined by the opinions of those who fear our potential, but by the courage to pursue our dreams, to overcome our obstacles, and to shine with the light of our true selves. And as I continue to write my destiny, every day is a celebration of the unbreakable spirit that has carried me from the depths of despair to the heights of triumph, and a promise that no one can ever steal away the power that lies within me.